One of the best ways to add life to your interior design is through plants. Look through design magazines and design books from throughout the years, and one piece of decor you will see over and over and over again is a plant. And why not add a little joy to your pots with a crocheted plant cozy? Hi, I'm Ashley Thompson and I'm the wine-inspired blogger behind the DIY blog Aloe Plum. I am an overachieving, often delusional crafter. I think I can learn to make anything, and that's often just not true. But I hope that through the lessons I learn and my trial and error that your DIYing can be even better. Today, I'm going to show you how to make a Frida Kahlo inspired plant cozy. This plant cozy has a little bit of a bohemian vibe that is super on trend right now. And it will take your terracotta pot from generic to special. But of course, before we get started, make sure you go subscribe to my channel, and while you're there, click on that little notification bell so that you don't miss any of my DIY projects. I come to you each week with new DIY tutorials, design hacks, and tips and tools from the design industry. Let's talk a little bit about the pattern for this plant cozy. I am gonna give you the complete pattern for this plant cozy, but what are the chances that your pot is the exact same dimensions as my pot? For this kind of tutorial, I think it's really helpful to have a little bit of an understanding about how I created the pattern so that you have the ability to make the adjustments you need to fit your plant. So as we go, I'm going to give you some ideas about how to adjust the pattern to make it fit any plant you're working on. But if you want to see more about how I design crochet patterns, particularly when I'm working with circles that I want to grow, like in this tutorial, check out my tutorial on designing a crochet pattern, the math behind crocheting circles. In that tutorial, you're going to see the behind the scenes for how I create a pattern like this and the math that goes into that pattern creation so that you really can make your own patterns or take any pattern like this one and easily adjust it to fit your project needs. To begin this plant cozy, we are starting with a magic loop. I know magic loops can seem complicated if you're not familiar with them, but trust me, taking the time to learn how to do one will make doing circles and hats and all kinds of crochet projects so much easier. It honestly even trips me up trying to show you how to do a magic loop, but I promise it is easier than it looks once you get the hang of it. So I'll put the yarn over my palm with the yarn facing down, wrap it around my palm so that it crosses over and goes to the other side. And then I'm just gonna stick my crochet hook under my bottom string, over my top string, yarn over into my hook, and pull down and through my bottom string. At this point, your magic loop is complete, but it still seems very unsteady. Once you put your chain in, it's all going to come together. So from here, I'm just gonna kind of hold on and I'm gonna chain 1 and 2. And now I'm ready to start building my first round. I will just yarn over, I'm doing a double crochet here, go under the whole loop, and I have the 2 strings here to the left, under the whole loop, hook it around my crochet hook, and then I'm gonna pull through 2, pull through 2. So that was 1. I'm gonna do 10 of these. And then this is where the magic loop gets its magic name. So I've completed my 10 double crochets, and now I'm just going to pull on my loose end and it tightens up my circle. I'm gonna join it together in this first round by just putting it through my first stitch, and I'm gonna yarn over and pull right through the whole thing. And you just kind of tighten it up a little bit more. And I have the perfect way to start any round crochet project. So then to start our next round, I'm just going to again chain 2, and I'm going to take this round of 10 to 20 in the next round. So I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into that same stitch that I just did my slip stitch through. I'm going to go in, pull it out, through 2, through 2. Now I'm going to do a second double crochet in that same stitch. This is how we are going to double the amount of stitches we have in this round. We're just going to keep going like that. It's pretty easy. Slip stitch into the first stitch of this round and you are ready to start row 3. Now to start round 3. Start by chaining 2. Now do 2 double crochets into the same stitch. One double crochet into the following stitch, and this is your pattern. Now repeat to the end with 2 double crochets in one stitch and then 1 double crochet in the next stitch. By doing this, you will add 10 additional stitches in this row, growing your round from 20 stitches to 30 stitches. When you reach the end, do a slip stitch into that first stitch of that round, and you're ready for round 4. For round 4, start by chaining 2 and doing 2 double crochets into the same stitch. And you can probably guess that we will again be lengthening the space between where we double crochet into a single stitch. For this round, after doing 2 double crochets in the first stitch, you will do 1 double crochet into the next 2 stitches. This is your pattern until the end of this round, growing your stitches by 10 and taking you from 30 stitches to 40 stitches. And again, when you get to the end, you'll slip stitch into that first stitch to be ready for your next round. I'm sure that even if you are a beginner crocheter, that at this point you know that we are going to have to keep changing our circle as we grow. So as we go from a smaller circle to a bigger crocheted circle, we are going to be increasing our stitches in every single round. But the length between the stitches where we increase a stitch continues to grow the farther out in our circle we get. And don't forget, for more information on this, check out my tutorial on designing a crochet pattern, the math behind crocheting circles. This will not only help you alter this pattern, but it will help you make your own patterns or alter any pattern you find on the internet. It's a great tool to have in your crochet toolkit, the ability to know the math behind adding and subtracting to grow a circle. Check it out. And starting round 5, our pattern for how we're growing our circle continues. We will do 2 stitches in the first stitch and then 1 stitch in the next 3 stitches this time. And this way we are going to grow from 40 stitches to 50 stitches. Our Frida Kahlo Plant Cozy is coming along. Not only is it something you're going to want to make for your home decor, but this would also make a great Galentine's gift. What better way to show the women in our lives how much they mean to us than by giving them a piece for their home inspired by an iconic, strong woman? To me, that adds something special to my house. I want to be surrounded by things that make me feel strong and ready to conquer the world. And I know that a little DIY plant cozy maybe seems like a stretch for that tall of an order, but I think when we add these kinds of things to our home and we're surrounded by it daily, that it really adds to that feeling of empowerment. But this isn't a history lesson. In fact, if you're watching this tutorial, it's probably because you already know how great Frida Kahlo is. But give this video a like if you think that these DIY projects inspired by iconic women are adding a great vibe to your house and you want to see more. And for round 6, which is my final round, we will again chain 2, and this time we're going to crochet 2 double crochets in the first stitch, and then we are going to do 1 double crochet each in the next 4 stitches. 6 rounds of double crochets might be the right size for my pot, but it might not be the right size for yours, and that's where knowing how to grow your circle comes in handy. You could have stopped at the last round if you had a smaller pot, and if you need to go 1 more round, you just know that you have to grow the length that you have between adding the extra stitch on that next round too. So round 7 would be 2 stitches in the first stitch, and then you would do 1 single double crochet in the next 5 stitches before repeating your pattern. To verify that you have crocheted enough for your base, simply lay your plant on top and make sure you can see all edges of your circle base. For this pot, it is 6 rounds of double crochet, which ends up with 60 stitches in my last round. Now begins the process of building up the sides of our cozy. Since we had 60 stitches at the end of our last round, the rest of our rounds will have 60 stitches as well, and that's what's going to bring the sides up as we go. For my first round, I will start with chaining 1. Now I'm only going to be crocheting in the back loop of each stitch to help define the edge of my base. I will do 1 single crochet in each stitch all the way around, slip stitching into my first stitch when I get to the end. Now that I have a nice edge to my base, I'll start working my way up. Round 8 will start with chaining 2, and then a double crochet in each of my 60 stitches all the way around. I think a fun bubble stitch adds a little bit of flair to my Frida Kahlo Plant Cozy, but this part's totally optional. Feel free to skip ahead if you don't want to do it. So I'm going to change colors so that I'm using this teal yarn. And then I'm going to do 5 single crochets, and then a bubble stitch, and then 5 single crochets, and then a bubble stitch, and that's how the pattern goes for this round. To do a bubble stitch, yarn over and start a double crochet, but only pull through the first 2 loops, leaving 2 loops on your hook. Yarn over and do another double crochet, only pulling through the first 2 loops again. So now you have 3 loops on your hook. You'll do that again. This time having 4 loops. One more time. 5 loops. And finally, pull through the last 2 for 6 total loops on your hook. Now you're going to yarn over and pull through all of the loops. Do a single crochet in the next stitch and you've made your bubble stitch. I'll continue my pattern of 5 single crochets between each bubble stitch by doing 4 more single crochets here, and then I'll be ready to start my next bubble stitch. I'm going to complete this project with 10 rows of a moss stitch, but if you don't know how to do a moss stitch, you can also do 10 rows of single crochet or 5 rows of a double crochet. If you don't know how to do a moss stitch yet, check back to my channel because I'm going to bring you a tutorial soon. To do a flower, I'm going to simply start with a slip knot, and then I'll put my crochet hook in and I'm going to chain 29 chains. Then I'm going to turn my work and I'm going to do a single crochet in the second chain from the hook and crochet all the way down with single crochets, leaving me with 28 single crochets at the end. Now we're going to start making our flower petals. I'm going to chain 2 to start with, and then I'm going to start doing double crochets into that same stitch. Each petal will be a total of 5 stitches in the same stitch, but our first stitch has the chain acting as our first part of the petal, so we only need to do the chain 2 and then 4 double crochets into that stitch. Now we have our 5 stitches into that stitch, so we're going to do a single crochet into the very next stitch. And now do 5 double crochets in the next stitch, that's making our next petal. I'm going to repeat this pattern for 5 sets where I do 5 double crochets in one stitch and then a single crochet in the next stitch. Then I'm going to start making the petals a little bit smaller, and I'm going to change to a pattern of 5 half double crochets in a stitch followed by a single crochet in the next stitch, 5 half double crochets followed by a single stitch. And here is an example of that next size petal where I do 5 half double crochets in that stitch. I'm going to continue this pattern until I have a total of 5 petals made from the half double crochet stitch. At this point, you should have 10 total petals formed, 5 that are a full double crochet and 5 that are a half double crochet. Now I'm going to move on to my smallest size petal, which is going to be made of a simple single crochet. So for the last 8 stitches that I have, I will do 5 single crochets into a stitch and then a single crochet into the next stitch. 5 single crochets into the next stitch and a single crochet into the next stitch. And here's an example of one of our single crochet petals. I'm doing 5 single crochets into this stitch and then I'm going to follow it with a single crochet into the next stitch. I'm going to continue this pattern until my flower is complete, and then I'll show you how to roll the flower up and finish it. These flower petals are really flexible and you don't have to follow the exact same pattern for every single flower. You could start your flower with triple crochets or half triple crochets, or you could do 6 double crochets to begin with and then have less of the half double crochets. Really, it's up to you, and I think that at the end the result is a little bit better if you have some variation in your flowers and do them each a little bit differently. And to turn this into our final flower, I'm just going to start rolling it up from the short petal end, and I'm going to roll it up keeping the ends fairly flat, and I'm just going to use my hook to pull that end string back through my flower. I'm going to keep rolling it up and just using that string as I go to connect the different petals to each other and kind of make that shape I want. This is not really an exact science. I'm not going to tell you go through the 3rd chain or anything like that. Just kind of roll it up, and as you go, pull that end strand through anywhere you want to kind of help form your flower petal and make it exactly what you want. And at the end you have a great little crocheted flower for your Frida Kahlo Plant Cozy. To make her iconic eyebrows and her eyes, I'm just using some black yarn and a yarn needle. I am just eyeballing it as I go, and I am using a back stitch that I use in my embroidery work. And here is my finished Frida. It's about time, Frida. I think she turned out great. It is the perfect pop of color on my plant stand, adds a fun little variety, and I also made this little coordinating plant cozy with my bubble stitch in a gradient aqua, and I think it looks great too. I think it brings it all together to have at least 2 of something. It adds a little bit of a cohesiveness to the whole plant stand. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and I hope that you not only learned how to make a Frida Kahlo plant cozy, but that you also learned how to adapt this pattern for any plant cozy you can dream up. And like always, if you did like this video, then don't forget to click on that like button too. It really means a lot to me, and it helps me know what you want to see more of. I'll be back soon with a new tutorial, but until then,